Ladies and gentlemen, it's not very often that we get to see Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen go toe-to-toe in something that's other than official competition. Imagine if two fighters just met up at their local gym and just started going at it, right? Well, yesterday we had the conclusion of the Agadmator Cake DeFi, Lichess cryptocurrency arena, etc., etc. And in this video, I'm going to take you through how Hikaru beat Magnus in the only game that they played, and then I'm going to show you a game from every one of the top three finishers, which were Hikaru Nakamura, Penguin, aka Andrew Tang, and David Paravian, aka Dropstone. I believe that's who that is in third place. Games timestamps from the video player. Let's just jump right into it. So the only game that we got to see between Dr. Championstein, aka Magnus Carlsen, and Hikaru began with the move F3. It was a 2-minute game, so neither one of them cut their time in half as a risk to win a game and increase their overall score in the tournament. And Magnus went for this opening with the white pieces. He was actually bomb clouding everybody. I don't know why. First place in this tournament is a Bitcoin, so maybe he just doesn't care. But I don't know. He was bomb clouding everybody. And Hikaru was trying to win a Bitcoin. So E5, E3, Knight F6, and Magnus takes the center now with the move D4. Black should, of course, continue quick development, continue to strike in the center at some point, like take, and C5. And Hikaru does trade and does trade and just develop. But he plays it a little bit slowly, and he allows Magnus to kind of consolidate his position, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Magnus did play the Bon Cloud. He is going to be memeing, but he is definitely going to be worse. And that's because his king obviously has to get a couple more moves before he gets the safety. H2 is always under pressure. Very difficult for him to get everything consolidated. But he's on his way. Both players developing. Hikaru goes queen b6, attacking the pawn on d4. But this is slightly inaccurate from the standpoint of, for example, let's just say you give white a move like, I don't know, h4, even as ridiculous as this move is. If you play knight takes d4, you can't actually take the pawn. So the knight has to be protected by the queen. Anywhere you move the knight, I take your queen. And if you go here, well, sure, you're defending me for now, but I have a3, I have bishop d2. It's kind of funny, like queen b6, knight a4. But it's bullet. I mean, no one plays a random move and then allows knight takes d4. In bullet, everyone's going to play this move first, which is exactly what Magnus does. It's very easy to sit there and analyze the game afterward, but Magnus actually doesn't have that bad of a position. So obviously now we're going to see quite a game, right? So we have bishop d2, bishop b4, takes, and Magnus kicks out the queen. And I mean, you can probably no longer say that black has any advantage despite white starting the game with f3, king f2. And the reason for this is, again, when your opponent gives you tempi like that early on, you need as much tension and imbalance as possible, and you need as many pieces on the board as you can get. The players only traded a bishop and a couple of pawns, but there's no imbalance because E and C pawns got traded into each other, so the pawn structure is completely frozen. And yeah, right. So at this point, actually, Hikaru himself was saying he misplayed because he just didn't anticipate that this was going to happen. I mean, you don't just get Magnus finally in this tournament and he plays the Bon Cloud and gives you just a much better position. So Hikaru plays rook e8, Magnus also brings his rook, and now we are going to have a rich and fruitful middle game. Hikaru plays b6, controlling the entry point of the knight so it cannot not get to c5, maybe ideas to bring out the bishop over here. Magnus decides to bring the knight back since he's not going to be able to move it forward, and actually white is better. White is better, and white is well on his way to beating Hikaru despite playing the Bon Cloud. White should play moves like g4 now. Even though the pawns are in front of the king, none of those pieces can get to the king. And then you're going to go g5, undermining the protection of this. g4, the knight comes behind the pawn and keeps going forward. Hikaru plays bishop d7. Magnus goes knight b5 and kicks the queen out. And plays queen f4, which obviously is a logical move. You want to trade queens, continue pressuring. Knight jumps in. Except queen f4 loses. It loses to the absolutely catastrophic removal of the defender. Rook takes e2. And Magnus resigns. Point is, he can take this, but loses queen. And if he goes king g3, he loses his queen in a couple of different ways. But the most brutal is knight h5. And then you continue to walk forward, and very shortly thereafter, you will be checkmated. So Magnus had to play queen f4 this way, because if rook e2, his knight could come back and take the rook and still protect the queen. But because he played knight b5 and then played queen f4, yeah, he lost the queen, and he lost the game in 18 moves. So that is how Hikaru beat Magnus, and Magnus blundered a queen against Hikaru. And that's unfortunately the only game we got. In 2 hours of chess and 50 games played by all these players, we only got to see one game. I mean, this is so ridiculous. The one thing the entire chess world can agree upon is we would love to see a 100-game, no-increment bullet match between Hikaru and Magnus. It doesn't matter what website you support, doesn't matter what creators you hate or like, we can all agree on one universal truth, and it's that, okay? No one out there goes, well, actually, I don't want to see that. And if you do, you're just terrible. Anyway, for the remainder of this video, I'm going to show you a better Hikaru game as well toward the end. Feel free to jump around. We're going to begin with the third place finisher. That is Dropstone. I believe, like I said, I think this is David Paravian. This was a game that he played, and again, it's bullet, so everybody makes mistakes. But also, this is it's a crazy, fast-paced arena. So it's hard to find games where there aren't just a tremendous amount of blunders. Here's a game of his toward the end of the event, where he is playing against Yaroslav Zherebu, who's a strong grandmaster originally from Ukraine, I believe, and now in the United States. This one was relatively tame early on, but black trades bishop into knight, and then puts 2 pawns on dark square. So if you're going to trade the dark squared bishop, you want to have good dark squared reinforcement, negating the movement of your opponent. Zherebu does not take that long to start an attack. He brings his knight back to h2, and then he plays bishop back to f1, avoiding a trade, and g4. So he's making very clear his intentions of trying to attack Paravian, right? And this is on Paravian's last few games of the tournament. He's got to win. This is actually exactly what he wants. Rook d8, and he's ready to strike in the center. But first, he's got to move his own knight out of the way, because queen f3 was setting up this beautiful shot bishop takes h6, which sometimes is just hidden in all this, and you would lose the knight, and then you would lose this pawn maybe. So very disastrous situation. But white is just continuing to come forward. This is actually a super dangerous position. Queen g3. I mean, look at this. White is going to throw all the pawns forward. So what does Paravian do? He plays d4. He's going to try to use this pawn as a lever to trade and get the knight into the position. Zherebu plays bishop d2, maintaining defense. Paravian plays queen e7, c4. May I just mention, it's like almost move 20. They haven't traded any pawns. They don't trade pawns in this game for a very long time. So queen to c5. b3. Now we have d3 check. Okay? Discovered check. Bishop blocks the queen check. Now we have knight into d4. By the way, that hangs the d3 pawn, so it could be taken right now. It doesn't get taken because he has c3, which puts pressure on the knight, which is pinned to the queen. But Paravian has a beautiful counter shot, danger levels, d2. Oh my goodness, so now the rook is hanging, even though the knight is hanging, right? If you move the rook to d1, I have a knight check, which is exactly what happens. I have a knight check. And now, if you take me, I take your bishop, but if you come here, I take your queen. Oh, but first, I need to sack my queen. So I have to sack my queen, and then win yours for absolutely free, right? But now my knight is kind of trapped. I don't know, you might win my knight in the future. Crazy tactics. Bishop takes e2, and Paravian swoops up the first pawn of the game on move 23, and that d2 pawn looking nice and juicy. So we have bishop back to f1, rook d6, and here come the doubled rooks. I mean, obviously you need to support d2. Black is in the driver's seat and completely winning. Rook b1, knight f8. Now it's time to bring the rest of the pieces. The way you win a position like this is you just trade off slowly. You make sure your opponent can't get any counterplay, and it's bullet, so you need to play very quickly. Look at that. Look at that transfer. Knight f8, knight g6, knight f4. Oh my gosh. That knight just went from a spectator to the main character. All right, we have king to h1, c5. Let's just lock everything down. b4. Zherebu trying to open things up, and now he's down 2 pawns. It's absolutely disastrous. Takes, b5, but he's got nothing. b6, I mean, what can he do? He's now down 3 pawns. He's looking for counterplay desperately. We have king to h7. All right, we have knight to f1. Oh my gosh. Wait, Paravian's blundered. Paravian must have misclicked here or something. He must have tried to go knight e6. I don't know, knight d3, but somehow the knight goes to d5. This is why I absolutely love bullet, because maybe he just hallucinated. Maybe he just thought that this could, I don't know. I didn't ask him. Maybe he was trying to go to knight c2. I don't know. I have no idea what he missed. I don't know. He probably misclicked. But now we have a new game. We have a new game because just pawn takes knight. Knight to e3 is coming. You're going to take on d2. This is absolutely amazing. Rook takes d5, knight e3, another blunder. Queen c3. He's given up a full rook. He could have played queen c5, pinning the knight to the queen. That would have prevented this. But it's bullet. Things happen. Now all of a sudden, Paravyan is down a rook, but he has 7 pawns. So he has 4 pawns for the rook. And he plays rook d3, gives up the pawn, and takes on f3. Wait a minute, his attack is somehow not over. Despite him hanging a knight out of nowhere and a rook, the man is still attacking. We have queen b3, queen e2, here comes an attack on the king, and Paravyan accidentally allows a queen trade. So now he's definitely on the losing side of things. He might win white's remaining pawn, but 2 rooks will beat a rook and 5 pawns. They just will. 2 rooks are just way too powerful. Pawns take way too long to move. Unless you're able to keep everything together. You're able to keep your entire structure together and somehow move everything forward, right? Rook d7. You're not going to be able to keep everything together because, as you can see, Zherabuk is going for the base of operations. He gets to the base of operations, he's going to win the rest of the pawns. So David trades off the rooks and just goes for the final pawn. It is king in 5 versus rook. This is completely lost. You will lose this pawn, and then if the rook will go around back here and take these pawns are just too slow. So Zherabuk is obviously going to... Wait a minute. Zherabuk is not seeing the winning plan. The winning plan is you have to go around and win these pawns first. Because like I said, these pawns are too slow. Doesn't matter. You can't, you're not going to win this because the rook's pawns are going to get captured. But it's bullet. These things happen. King f2. All of a sudden, David just needs to save 1 pawn. Now if rook h7, there's b6. If rook b7, you continue to chase, probably is going to work, right? But the king is going to come around. This is Zherabuk's last chance to potentially save this game with rook h7, and he doesn't. He just walks his king. Now you would say, what's the problem? Well, this is the problem. King d4. And like, for example, if you play rook h7 now, b4, and here's the problem. My king and pawn, I grab the pawn, I don't let the pawn die. While your king is going to win these 2, I'm going to push my b pawn. So Paravyan saves the pawn, and now zigzag. Wait a minute. Whoa, the b pawn's been a distraction this entire time, and here come the f pawn. Here comes the f pawn all the way down the board, and somehow Paravyan queens. Yaroslav not able to pick up any of the pawns, and now, obviously, this is just a part of the game where there's belligerent time trouble, but checkmate follows. Absolutely insane game from Paravyan, who saves the day, and this is like a game that he won like 2 or 3 before the conclusion, so this could have gone either way, but this game probably sealed him a top 3 finish, but it was unbelievably close. And the next game that I'd like to show you is this game between Ivan Šarić and Andrew Tang, Grandmaster from US, Grandmaster from Croatia. Flip those. So Andrew Tang has a very solid bullet playing style. He's not like he will not get into a violent tactical fight. He plays very consistent openings. He knows them extremely well, and he goes for positions that are balanced, and he can outplay you when both of you have 15 seconds on the clock. So it's very difficult to play him in bullet. So what he does here against this Nimso Larsen opening, which is intending to get rid of this knight and win control of the center, is he just goes for the bishop. Andrew has played this actually against me as well, like this. White plays d3, both players just trying to get castled. Knight e5, f4. This is all very standard, but the problem is that white overextends too early. And in this situation, that bishop on b2 is extremely delicate. Knight to g4 out of nowhere. Before both sides castle, now we have a weakness on e3, weakness on e5, and Andrew picks up the e3 pawn, which means that he is just much better. Nice tactical vision there. Queen goes to e2, knight jumps out. Andrew's just a pawn up. He's in the clear. And this is when things get pretty wild. So g4, obviously it's bullet. So in bullet chess, when you're losing, you might as well double down on the fact that you're losing and just go for it, okay? So we have knight to h6, we have h3, castles, long castles. Like I said, you're losing, double down, just go for it. Now the best way for black to play is a move like b5. Black needs to anticipate the long castling, the opposite side castling attack, and just play aggressive chess. Because if h4, there's this, right? So you're not really worried. But Andrew decides to deal with this knight in the center first, but Šarić plays g5. So like I said, just double down on the fact that you're in a crazy position, right? If fe5, there's gh6. I don't even know what the hell is going on. Bishop takes e5. There's bishop takes f4 check with the bishop here hitting everything. I don't know. But he goes knight f5. Now we have knight jumps out to g4, pressuring over here, but there is queen takes f4 check here. One mover. Andrew likes that, though. Andrew likes the exchange. So there's a queen and a rook hanging, right? He picks it up. And here, in his attempt to simplify the position, Andrew trades this bishop into this knight. And his mentality here is obviously the less pieces that white has on the board, the better. But that move almost blows black's entire advantage. The move that you have to play here is very nice, very instructive move. By the way, if you still like to attack the king, you're more than welcome. Very instructive move here by black. Must be played. That move, d4. What d4 does is it shuts the door permanently on this bishop. If white tries to dig out with c3, that doesn't actually do anything. Because you can take on g5 now. This is protected. The queen still stares at the king if the c file opens up. So very dangerous position for white. So d4 is a nice move, shutting the door on that bishop permanently. But Andrew plays bishop g4 and somehow invites some violence toward his own king. Right? Now he plays d4, but now this. So he's invited this upon himself. He's got to be very careful here, right? Because Šarić is about to come in. So what does Andrew do? He says, yeah, come and take me. Come and take me. If you take on h7, rook h8, uh-oh, queen trapped. So now Šarić has to, he's like, what do I do? He plays king b1. King b1 has a couple of ideas. Maybe saving the bishop, just kind of getting out of the way of things. At some point, he's got to open things up, right? So he's got to play f5, gf, something like this. Andrew plays rook h8. We have bishop back to c1, which was the purpose of this move. But it would have been better here for Šarić to play this and kind of anticipate an arrival on the d5 square. So for example, if I just give a move to black, something like b6, you have this, f5, g5, like knight here, position starts opening up. But Šarić waits a little bit too long to go for queen g2 and rook e8, and maybe there's going to be queen c6, but here white has an amazing move, f5, and white is almost better. Why is white better? For example, if you take, what is the point of f5, you say? This. That queen in the middle of the two rooks, the queen, the bishop, can still get in and say, hello, hello to the king. You say, okay, well, I'm just not going to open that up. I'm going to go g5, easy peasy. Kaboom! Knight takes d4. What? Queen d5. King f8. I still have a bishop. Did you forget about this bishop? Look at this. You get completely laser beamed here on the diagonals. Bullet is crazy. There are so many high-level tactics all over the place and not enough time for the players to spot them. f5, and Šarić would have been well on his way with a crazy initiative. Probably Andrew would have had to do this to meet the queen on the diagonal. And that's actually what Andrew did in the game. He did put his queen on c6. And then he brought in his rook. And Šarić went for g5. But the problem, when you go like this, you sack everything. But the king hides. And when the queen goes to the back rank, it's the most aggressive piece which comes home, kicks the queen out, and Šarić resigns because his queen can't hang out anywhere. Queen f4 threatening this. White would play black would play rook f8, and you actually lose a rook. So Šarić resigned, and Andrew Tang finished in clear second place in this tournament after winning like 10 of his last games. Literally. He went on like a 9 to 10 game winning streak to close it out like an absolute madman. And congratulations to him on a second place finish. And if you had the patience to stick around, or maybe you jumped ahead, the last game that, I apologize. The last game I wanted to show you was this one. Again by Hikaru, not a silly Bon Cloud win with a one-move blunder, but Hikaru played 56 games in this tournament, and he lost 6. I might be slightly off. He might have played 58 games. He had 6 losses out of like 57, 58 games. That is nuts, okay? He won 75% of his games. I mean, he probably drew, I guess, 7 or 8, like 6 draws. 6 losses, 8 draws, 40-something wins against an average rating of like 2,900 bullet. Unbelievable stuff. And this is one of the games that he won. In fact, I think this is the last game that he won of the event. It was against Sam Sevian. That's Sparta, 299. And, you know, the opening, nothing special. It's obviously just the standard Queen's Gambit decline, triangle setup by black, like this. The game is going to open up, though, in a moment when, first of all, we have a pawn trade on the queen side as Sam tries to take some space. We have takes, bishop e2, bishop b7. And really, the most fun moment of this game was right here. Sam takes on f6, and obviously, if you take on f6 with the knight, you lose this pawn. That was Sam's entire idea. If you take on f6 with the bishop, you lose this pawn. That was Sam's entire idea. But after bishop takes f6, Hikaru doesn't do any of that. He takes with this pawn. He doesn't take with the bishop or the knight, he takes with gf6. And I think you know where we're going with this. To the untrained eye, you go, oh my god, Hikaru's crazy. Why is he opening up his king? Well, this is why. At some point, you're going to go here. And when king h8 happens, that's when your opponent goes, oh no. Hikaru understands that the coordination of white's pieces and the lack of space in the center, if white had more space, it'd be easier for him to transfer pieces over here, but he doesn't. He's unable to open up the center. So he plays b3, which is just kind of a nothing move, plays queen d2. Hikaru now goes for that knight, right? He's trying to damage the pawn structure. So the knight comes back, takes, the bishop drops back for a moment, and Hikaru does this. The point of f5 is two things. Number one, it's going to be a transfer point for your pieces, right? So you're probably going to put something on e4. But number two, did I just have two fingers up the entire time? Anyway, the second point is you close the center. So white can't play e4. White can't open up the board. So knight a4 back, right? Now we have knight f6, bishop d6. And what move did I promise you all is going to happen? This. And now the position is going to get extremely dangerous for white. Now the computer, by the way, thinks that white should play queen b2. That is an impossible move in bullet. And this game will show you how easily Hikaru just cultivates just violent stuff against his opponents. And he did it again and again and again. He beat Ali Reza, he beat Artemiev. I just really like this game because it just shows you, right? Gf6, at some point king h8. It seems like the opponent has done nothing, by the way. Like, Sevian is an incredible player, but it seems like for about 10 moves now, nothing has changed in his position, right? Like what has changed? So, here comes bishop e5. Rook d1 and knight e4. All the pieces slowly are moving forward. Here comes rook g8. Here comes rook g8. Now I have a straightaway line of attack, right? Oh, I'm gonna drop back my bishop. I don't want to get taken. g3, but g3 is a commitment. Now I have a target. I have a target on that g3 square, and I'm gonna double my rooks. And the attack just keeps getting stronger and stronger. The anticipation of a tactical shot keeps getting stronger and stronger, even if it's not there. So Sevian tries to trade and blockade. All that does is go takes. Queen d4 is possible. Hikaru chooses to play bishop d5. Just, I guess, making sure that everything stays protected. Maybe queen is going to rotate over. Oop, queen e7, queen g5, queen e7, queen f6, rook h6, e3 kind of ideas. And make sure these pawns are going to come in a moment, right? Knight c5, queen e7. Look at that. The queen now joins the party, f4. While Sevian is trying to take on the queen side, f4. Now we have e3. So we're cracking at both pawns protecting the king. The rooks are still laser beaming. The queen is ready. The bishop is opening up. Sevian takes the bishop. That is a good first step, but he can't deal with the pawns, right? We have pawn takes e3. Now we have f takes g3. Rook f3, queen e4. All the pawns near the king have fallen. And now is actually my favorite move. My absolute favorite move of this entire attack. This. That move is so ludicrous to me. I don't understand queen e7 at all. And yet it's like the best move. Literally, it's the top engine move. Like, I would be looking for, you know, rook g4. I would play rook g4 here and try to play rook h4 or something. I don't know, rook g4, rook h4. But it's so difficult, like, to see, you know, and queen e7 is just great. I mean, it's just like, the point of queen e7 is that if rook takes f7 is played, you have check. So you're trying to set up a check on the king, and at the same time, rook h6. So Hikaru drops back with the queen to e7, baits his opponent into taking this, and it looks like a mate. Check hits the king, and check not only hits the king, it also teams up with the rook to go rook h6. So you can block the check or go king h1 and rook h6 comes. So we have this, rook h6. We have rook f5. He takes the queen. He goes here, and that's it. You're just going to get either mated or laddered. And Sevian resigns. Queen e7 is such dirt. I mean, it's just so nasty. It just shows you how incredible tactically Hikaru is at bullet. And he ran away with the tournament. He absolutely ran away with it. He won by like 12 or 13, 14 points, which is, you know, several games. There obviously was a very close finish for third. I think it was like 1 or 2 points. Paravian, I believe, won $2,500. Andrew Tang won $10,000. And Hikaru won a Bitcoin, which throughout probably the recording of this episode fluctuated by several thousands of bucks. So, congratulations to all the players. And folks, can I just sign off, number one, by thanking Agadmator for organizing this? But number two, can I just please reiterate the fact, how many of you would like to see that? I would, if there was a pay-per-view, if it was a... Okay, first of all, if it was a chess boxing pay-per-view, I mean, I don't know. There is no price that's high enough. I would absolutely pay to see that. It's a shame we only got to see one game between Hikaru and Magnus. But fun game anyway, and hopefully we get to see some more in the future. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.